Hello, this is Dustin Mashmeyer, and this is the Hidden Figures case study video team project for Team 3 in the Engineering Management 805 course. That's consisting of Courtney Repke, Nolan McCulloch, and Dustin Mashmeyer, myself. A little bit about the movie. This is based in the early 1960s, where the setting was that we were in the height of the American and Soviet space race, where we're presented with the life of three female friends who worked in the female all African American computing section of NASA at Langley. So the storyline here is it's a dramatization portrayal of the untold true story, showing the struggles, contributions, and the overall impacts that these three friends had to experience while supporting NASA's efforts to launch astronaut John Glenn into orbit. So they had to work across all gender, race, and professional lines, while their brilliance and desires to dream big beyond anything ever accomplished before by the human race firmly cemented them in U.S. history as true American heroes. So a little bit about each character here. Catherine, she was a mathematical genius whose expertise in analytic geometry got her assigned to the Space Task Group under Al Harrison, who was played by Kevin Costner. She struggled across to gain access to the necessary information and was constantly quashed by her lead engineer, Paul, stating that she didn't have the proper clearances. But despite her struggles with the inherent racism and the inability to receive the needed information, she still outshined her coworkers and was given the recognition that she deserved. Dorothy, she worked as the acting supervisor for the African American computing section. She had all of the responsibilities but didn't have the title or the pay. And she believed that she was being held down by her Caucasian supervisor, Vivian. Through some struggles, she did teach herself the new IBM mainframe computer, and then brought her team with her and flourished and eventually did get the appropriate title and pay. Mary, on the other hand, she worked in the space capsule team shield or heat shield team, and was encouraged to apply for a senior engineering position. But she soon found that she needed additional qualifications, but she couldn't get them because the only place that she could go to get those qualifications and take those courses were at a school that African Americans were not allowed to go to. So she took that to court and eventually won and was able to get those qualifications. So the article that I'm highlighting within this case study is over the critical role of conflict resolution in teams. I highlighted the linking of conflict resolution strategy with team performance and member satisfaction. So the three teams involved were the Space Task Group, the Space Capsule Heat Shield team, and the African American Computing section. So I linked and combined the Space Task Group and the Space Capsule Heat Shield team together here because they're extremely similar. They were consistently high and had with increasing performance, but were consistently low or had decreasing satisfaction. And the main reason for this is that the resolution was focused on creating explicit rules. So written rules and they used arbitration approach to conflict, and these are pulled straight out of the article. Now the team overall was extremely high performing because they had to be, but they were threatened by new members. And within this movie, Catherine and Mary had to follow strict rules and eventually break those rules to make it past the conflict within those teams and to accomplish the goals that those teams and those individuals needed to accomplish. Now, the African American computing section, that on the other hand, I would say was a consistently high or increasing performance and satisfaction. And the main reason for this is because they were focusing primarily on equity. They worked assignments based on skills and focused on content over delivery style. And they did have to struggle due to the inherent racism, but work together as a team to further better the group as overall. And through Dorothy's leadership, she helped to elevate not only herself but the entire team, and that was highlighted throughout the movie. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Courtney to go over social and behavioral development.
Thanks, Dustin. I'd like to focus on the conflict that Catherine had overcome with her engineering team, primarily with Paul Stafford, who was lead engineer. So when looking at teams and their performance, we tend to just think of the team as one entity and rarely focus on the individuals that affect the performance of the team. In fact, very little research has been done on how individuals can directly affect the success of their team. However, the article Social and Behavioral Influences on Team Process is able to pinpoint the 5 stages of social and behavioral development. They are self-identity, social identity, group emotion, group mood, and emotional intelligence. I'd like to focus on the first 2, self-identity and social identity, as the 2 primary causes of conflict on Catherine's team. Self-identity is based on the background of the individual and how they were raised. Think nature versus nurture. Their upbringing and beliefs directly affect their views, how they operate, and how they treat people. In the 1960s, it was a very common view that African American women do not belong on the engineering floor, even as a mathematician. From the very beginning, Paul withheld information and discredited Catherine as a productive member of the team solely based off of his views and her looks. Based off of his actions, production was slowed due to her having to sort through the limited information given. The second stage is social identity, which is an intertwinement of self-identity and how other members of the team identify. In the movie, Catherine is seen drinking the floor's coffee, but later on, the team added a separate but unequal coffee dispenser. It was displayed for the entire team to see it, and no one spoke up to make sure Catherine felt like an equal team member. She felt ostracized and eventually shared her frustration that her work environment wasn't conducive to the demands of her position. Ultimately, these 2 stages sourced a lot of the conflict that Catherine experienced, which hindered the productivity of the team to get results in the fastest manner. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Nolan, who's going to discuss the backlash effect.
Thanks, Courtney. So in the article, Status Incongruity and Backlash Effects Defending the Gender Hierarchy Motivates Prejudice Against Female Leaders, the authors talk about the backlash effect, which they define as when women in the workplace show qualities of assertiveness, dominance, and arrogance, they're consequently seen for those qualities as unfit for leadership. And the authors also go in to talk about something called the dominance penalty, which is almost a double standard of the backlash effect, where when female leaders show assertiveness and competitive behaviors, they're often seen as they're viewed as extreme, whereas when males in comparable positions show those same behaviors, they're often seen as a positive or even leadership qualities. And this can kind of be seen as we look into the character, fictional character Vivian Mitchell, who in the film is quite a cold and calculating, almost insensitive and inapproachable leader for her group. And when you compare it to the other antagonist in the film, Paul Stafford, you can almost see similar stuff, but there is a bit more of a cold and insensitive nature to Vivian's character that Paul's character somewhat shows, but not to the same magnitude. And you can almost see that there. When you look at the leadership of Dorothy and compare that to Al Harrison, they're both seen as competent leaders for their groups, and so this backlash effect is somewhat subtle. It's not universal, and it does kind of take a secondary seat to the central tension of racism in the film. In summary, Dustin talked about the contrasting conflict resolution in the different groups that were in the film and the performance levels and member satisfaction of those groups. Courtney talked about the social behavior development of individuals and groups, and I talked about a little bit towards the end the symptoms of the backlash effect and some of the ways that the characters in the film portrayed this. Thank you for attending our presentation, and here are some resources that we used to create this presentation. Thank you very much.